Laura Schneider was 34 when she met Ricardo Torres at an international digital marketing conference in Frankfurt in the fall of 2019. She never imagined that chance encounter in the lobby of the Marriott Hotel would change her life forever, and not in the way she had dreamed. Laura was everything you would expect from a successful German professional. Organized, punctual, with a solid career as a project manager at a technology company in Munich. After a difficult divorce 2 years earlier, she had devoted herself entirely to her work, filling the emotional void with meetings, reports, and business trips. Her close friends noticed the loneliness in her eyes, but Laura always deflected the subject with a polite smile and comments about how she was focused on herself. Ricardo was 42 years old, of average height, with dark hair that was always impeccably combed, and a smile that lit up any room. He introduced himself as a hotel entrepreneur, owner of a boutique resort in Cancun. "It's paradise," he said with contagious enthusiasm, showing photos on his cell phone of idyllic beaches, infinity pools and luxurious rooms overlooking the Caribbean Sea. "I built it all from scratch with my own hands and a lot of hard work." What began as a casual conversation about digital marketing strategies quickly evolved into long dinners, nighttime walks through the streets of Frankfurt, and constant messages even after the conference ended. Ricardo had a special way of making Laura feel seen, valued, special. He asked about her dreams, her fears, her frustrations. He listened, really listened, in a way her ex-husband never had. "You deserve more than this gray life," Ricardo would say, holding her hands during a video call. "In Germany it's all work, work, work. You're wasting your best years at a desk." He painted Cancun as a paradise, not only geographically but existentially. A place where she could live fully, work remotely at her own pace, wake up to the sound of waves. In the first 3 months, Ricardo visited Germany twice. Each visit was an explosion of romance. Flowers delivered to Laura's office, dinners at expensive restaurants, whispered promises about a future together. He met Petra, Laura's best friend since college, during his second visit. Petra didn't like him right away. "Something doesn't add up," Petra commented as they had coffee at a bakery near Laura's apartment. "He's too perfect, too attentive, too interested, too intense." "You've only known him for 3 months, Laura." "You're just being overprotective," Laura replied, feeling defensive. "After Stefan, any man who treats me well seems suspicious to you." Stefan was her ex-husband, an emotionally distant man who had had an affair 2 years before Laura found out. The wound was still fresh. "That's not it," Petra insisted. "I checked his hotel online. There are reviews, yes, but not many. And when you search his name, not much comes up. For a successful businessman, he has a strangely small digital footprint." Laura felt a twinge of irritation. "Not everyone needs to be on LinkedIn with 500 connections, Petra. He's Mexican. He works in local tourism. It's obvious that his online presence would be different." But the seed of doubt had been planted, even if Laura didn't want to admit it. That night, alone in her apartment, she did what Petra had suggested. She searched for Ricardo Torres on Google, Facebook, and Instagram. What she found was exactly what he had shown her: an Instagram profile with professional photos of the resort, a few personal posts, positive reviews on TripAdvisor. Nothing alarming, nothing suspicious. What Laura didn't find, and what no one could find with a superficial search, was that Ricardo Torres wasn't his real name. That the resort in Cancun was registered under someone else's name. That there were at least 3 European women who had made the exact same journey Laura was about to make, and that none of them had returned the same way they had left. The marriage proposal came in January 2020 during Ricardo's 3rd visit to Germany. He took her to Nymphenburg Palace in Munich, waited until they were alone in an empty hallway, knelt down and opened a small blue velvet box. "Laura, you've brought color back into my life. Come with me to Mexico. Be my wife. Build a life with me in paradise." The ring was simple but beautiful, a small sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds. Laura felt tears run down her face as she said yes. At that moment, with Ricardo holding her hands and promising a future full of love and adventure, all of Petra's warnings seemed ridiculously paranoid. "Let's do this," Ricardo suggested as they celebrated with champagne at a fancy restaurant. "Come spend a month in Cancun. Get to know the resort. Get to know my life. See if you really like everything before making a final decision about moving permanently. No pressure, just a preview of our future." Laura agreed. It seemed reasonable, even sensible. She negotiated a month of remote work with her boss, booked her flight for February and started making plans. When she told Petra, her friend's reaction was immediate and intense. "You're making a mistake," Petra said bluntly. "A huge mistake. You've known him for 5 months, Laura. 5 months. And now you're going to another country, to his house, where you don't know anyone, don't speak the language perfectly, don't have a support network. I know enough Spanish to get by, Laura interrupted. And it's only a month. 1 month to see if it works. What's the problem? The problem is that you're so desperate not to be alone that you're ignoring all the warning signs, Petra fired back, and the words hit Laura like a punch in the stomach. He's isolating you. That's what manipulators do. He takes you out of your environment, puts you in a place where you're completely dependent on him. And then what? Laura asked coldly. Do you have any real evidence that he's dangerous? Any proof beyond your paranoia? Petra sighed, defeated. No, I don't. But please at least promise me one thing. Stay in daily contact with me. And if anything seems wrong, you come back immediately. Promise? I promise, Laura said, but she was already emotionally disconnected from the conversation. Petra was being absurd. Ricardo was kind, attentive, successful. The fact that he had fallen in love with her quickly was not a crime. It was romantic. The flight to Cancún was scheduled for February 15, 2020. Laura packed carefully, light clothes, sunscreen, her laptop for work, a few books she wanted to read. Ricardo had promised to pick her up at the airport himself. I can't wait to show you everything, my love, he wrote in his last message before she boarded. Our life together begins now. As the plane took off from Munich, Laura looked out the window at the gray, snowy landscape disappearing below. She felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness, but pushed any doubts to the back of her mind. This was a new beginning, a new life, a chance to be happy again. What Laura didn't know, and what would take her weeks of horror to discover, was that she wasn't Ricardo Torres's first European bride. She wasn't the second.
Hello guys, if you'd like to support our team that brings you the best true crime stories every week, don't forget to leave a like. It really helps us keep going. And we'd love to hear what you think in the comments below. Thank you for being with us, and enjoy the rest of the video.
She wasn't even the third. And the luxury resort he had so proudly shown her in photos wasn't exactly what it seemed. Behind the sparkling pools and immaculate rooms was a carefully constructed operation that had been running for years, leaving a trail of broken women, false documents, and crimes that Mexican and German authorities were only beginning to connect. But for now, as the plane crossed the Atlantic toward the Caribbean sun, Laura Schneider still believed she was flying toward her happy ending. The humid heat of Cancun hit Laura like a physical wave as she stepped out of the air-conditioned airport terminal. It was unlike any heat she had experienced in Germany. Dense, heavy, laden with the smell of sea salt and something else she couldn't quite identify. February in Munich meant thick coats and gray skies. Here, at 11 a.m., the sun was so intense that she had to shield her eyes immediately. Ricardo was waiting outside the arrivals area, exactly where he had promised. He was wearing a white linen shirt and sunglasses, and his smile was as radiant as it had been on the video calls. Mi amor, he shouted, running toward her and wrapping her in a tight hug. You're here. You're finally here. Laura felt relief flood her body. All of Petra's warnings, all the little doubts that had haunted her over the last few days, everything seemed absurd now. This was Ricardo, her fiancé, the man who loved her. He was there, real and solid, just as he had promised. How was the flight? He asked as he picked up her suitcase and guided her to the parking lot. You must be exhausted, but wait until you see the resort. You'll completely forget your tiredness. Ricardo's car was a large, imposing black Suburban with tinted windows. As they drove through the streets of Cancun, Laura observed everything with interest. The chaotic traffic, the street vendors, the signs in Spanish that she could only partially understand. Ricardo talked non-stop, pointing out landmarks, telling stories about the region, making plans for the next few days. First, let's get you settled in and let you rest, he said, placing his hand on her knee as he drove. Then tonight, a special dinner. Tomorrow I'll show you everything. The beach, the facilities, introduce you to the team. What about work? Laura asked. You said there was a nice office space with fast internet. I have a Zoom meeting on Thursday. Ricardo laughed. Of course. Everything is ready for you. But today just relax, okay? You work too hard, Laura. You need to learn to slow down. They drove for almost 40 minutes, gradually leaving the busy tourist area and entering more residential areas. Laura noticed that the landscape was changing. Fewer shiny hotels and more unfinished buildings, dirt roads, simple houses. She felt a slight pang of concern. It's far from downtown, she remarked, trying to sound casual. That's what makes it special, Ricardo explained. It's not one of those huge tourist resorts full of drunk Americans. It's boutique, exclusive, authentic. People come here for a real Mexican experience, not a fake Cancun. Finally, he turned onto a narrow road surrounded by dense vegetation. A white painted metal gate appeared and Ricardo honked twice. A man young, maybe 25, with a visible scar on his left cheek, opened the gate from the inside. He looked at Laura with an expression she couldn't quite read before waving Ricardo through. "That's Miguel," Ricardo said. "Security and maintenance. Nice guy, but he doesn't speak English or German, only Spanish." The resort that revealed itself behind the gate was not exactly what Laura had expected. There was indeed a pool area, smaller than in the photos, with tiles showing signs of wear. There was a 2-story main building painted terracotta with approximately 6 or 7 rooms. There were palm trees and a tidy outdoor area, but there were no visible guests, no movement, no music, no sound of people enjoying their vacation. "It's empty," Laura said, trying to hide the disappointment in her voice. "It's low season," Ricardo quickly explained, grabbing her bags from the car, "and we canceled this week's reservations because I wanted you all to myself for the first few days. No distractions, no demanding guests, just the two of us." He said it romantically, but something in the wording made Laura's stomach tighten slightly. She pushed the feeling away. Of course he wanted private time with her. They were engaged after all. Ricardo led her to what he called the master suite, a spacious room on the second floor overlooking the pool, and beyond the vegetation, a glimpse of the ocean in the distance. It was pleasant enough. King-size bed, private bathroom, working air conditioning. But Laura noticed small details that didn't match the image of a luxury resort that Ricardo had painted. Peeling wallpaper in one corner, a damp spot on the ceiling, curtains that had seen better days. "It's beautiful," she said, because that was what she was expected to say. "Get some rest," Ricardo suggested, kissing her forehead. "I'll make something special for lunch. You must be hungry." After he left, Laura finally allowed exhaustion to wash over her. She lay down on the bed, picked up her phone to send Petra a message confirming she had arrived safely, and then noticed something. The signal was weak. Just 1 bar. She tried to connect to the Wi-Fi Ricardo had mentioned, but the password he had given her didn't work. Irritated and tired, she decided to deal with it later. She closed her eyes for just a moment, and when she woke up, it was already dark outside. Disoriented, she checked her watch. 8:47 p.m. She had slept for almost 8 hours. She got up quickly, feeling guilty. Ricardo had probably been waiting for her all day. She opened the bedroom door and almost tripped over a tray on the floor. Food covered with plastic wrap, already cold. A handwritten note read, "I let you rest. Buenas noches. See you in the morning." The hallway was dark with only a faint light coming from somewhere downstairs. Laura picked up the tray and went back to her room, eating quietly as she tried to process her first day. Everything was fine, just a little different than expected. That was normal, right? Reality was never exactly the same as expectations. She tried to call Petra using WhatsApp, but the connection was so bad that the call dropped 3 times. Finally, she managed to send a text message. "I arrived safely. The resort is beautiful but different from the photos. I'll explore more tomorrow. Don't worry." Petra's reply came almost immediately. "Keep in touch. I want to talk to you every day and send me your exact location." Laura rolled her eyes but obeyed, sharing her location. Only then did she realize that the GPS showed she was almost an hour away from the Cancun hotel zone she knew from the maps. Much further than Ricardo had implied. The next 3 days followed a strange pattern. Ricardo was attentive, affectionate, always present, but in a way that was starting to feel suffocating. He accompanied her everywhere. When she mentioned wanting to explore the beach alone, he insisted on going with her to keep her safe. When she asked about going into town, he said it was dangerous and that they would wait a few days until she was more acclimated. The Wi-Fi remained inconsistent. Ricardo always had an excuse. Problems with the provider, local infrastructure issues, someone will come to fix it tomorrow. But tomorrow never came. Laura met other members of the team. Miguel, the security guard who never smiled. Sophia, an older woman who cooked and cleaned but avoided Laura's direct gaze. And Carlos, whom Ricardo introduced as the assistant manager, but whom Laura never saw doing any managerial work. On the 4th day, something happened that finally set off all the alarms in Laura's head. She was exploring the building while Ricardo was on the phone dealing with a business problem. At the end of the second-floor hallway, there was a door that was always locked. Laura, curious, tried the doorknob without really expecting it to open. To her surprise, it was unlocked. The room on the other side was completely different from any other in the resort. There was a laptop on a desk, several phones, and what made Laura's blood run cold: a whiteboard on the wall covered with women's names, dates, and amounts of money. She saw names that sounded European. Ingrid, $15,000. Katerina, $22,000. Sophie, $18,500. And in the lower right corner of the board, in more recent writing, was Laura, Germany, potential 30,000 plus. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made Laura jump. She ran out of the room, quietly closing the door behind her, and quickly returned to her own room, her heart pounding so hard it felt like it was going to burst out of her chest. That night, during dinner, she looked at Ricardo with new eyes. The way he controlled every aspect of her day, how he always had a reason for her not to use her phone, how he asked for details about her finances, her family, who in Germany would know where she was. "You're quiet tonight," Ricardo commented, running his hand down her arm. "Are you okay, mi amor?" "Just tired," Laura lied, forcing a smile. But that night, alone in her room, while Ricardo said he had work to finish, Laura finally admitted to herself the terrible truth. Petra was right. She had made a horrible mistake, and now she was stuck an hour away from anywhere safe in a foreign country, with a man who clearly wasn't who he said he was. The question now was no longer whether she should leave. It was how she was going to escape. Laura spent the night awake, lying in the darkness, listening to every sound in the resort: the creaking of wood in the hallway, low voices coming from somewhere below, the metal gate opening and closing at 2 a.m. Who was coming in or going out at that hour? At 6 a.m. she finally fell asleep from exhaustion, only to be awakened by a knock on the door. Ricardo entered with a breakfast tray, smiling radiantly as always. "Good morning, my love. I thought about letting you sleep in, but we have a special day planned." He placed the tray on the bed and sat down next to her. "Today we're going into town. You were asking to get to know Cancún better, remember?" "Really? That's great." Laura forced enthusiasm into her voice. But as she ate her breakfast, she noticed something strange. Ricardo couldn't take his eyes off her. He watched her every move, every expression, as if he were evaluating her. "Did you sleep well?" he asked casually. "I heard you walking in the hallway yesterday afternoon." Laura's blood ran cold, but she kept her face neutral. "I was just exploring. It's such an interesting place." "It really is," Ricardo said, and something in his tone made Laura realize he knew. He knew she had entered that room. Sometimes curiosity can be dangerous, don't you think? It was no longer a casual question. It was a warning. The trip to the city never happened. Ricardo received an urgent business call and promised they would go the next day. And the next day something else always came up. Laura began to understand. She wasn't at a resort. She was in a prison disguised as paradise. On the 6th day, Laura woke up and discovered that her passport was missing. She had kept it in the nightstand drawer. Now it was gone. "Ricardo," she confronted him at the pool, trying to keep her voice calm. "My passport is gone. Have you seen it?" He didn't even seem surprised. "Oh yes. I put it in the office safe for security. There are a lot of thefts in the area, you know. I'd like it back." Sure. When we need it," he smiled. But there was no warmth in the smile. "Why would you need it now? You're not planning on leaving, are you?" It was phrased as a joke, but they both knew it wasn't. That afternoon, while Ricardo was on an endless call at the office, Laura tried once again to use her cell phone. The signal was still weak, but she managed to send a short message to Petra. "I need help. I can't leave. He took my passport." The reply came quickly. "Calling the police now. Hang in there." But before Laura could reply, the door opened. Carlos was there holding a tray with juice. His eyes went straight to the cell phone in Laura's hand. "Mr. Ricardo asked me to bring this," he said in thick Spanish. He put down the tray and left, but Laura saw the way he looked at the phone. She didn't touch the juice. 15 minutes later, Ricardo appeared, looking grim. "Who were you talking to, Laura?" "Petra," Laura said, her heart racing. "She's worried because I haven't been in touch much." Ricardo held out his hand. "Give me the phone, Laura." "What? No. Now." His voice was no longer charming or kind. It was cold, authoritative, threatening. Laura clutched the phone to her chest. "You have no right." Ricardo's hand grabbed her wrist with brutal force. Laura screamed in pain as he twisted her arm, wrenching the phone from her fingers. She tried to resist, but he was stronger. Much stronger. "You've made a mistake," he said quietly, looking at the phone screen and seeing the message to Petra. "Did your friend call the police? Do you think the police will help?" He laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. Half the local police are in my pocket, sweetheart, and the other half doesn't care about stupid tourists who come here voluntarily. Laura felt tears of terror streaming down her face. Please just let me go. I won't tell anyone anything. Do you really think you're the first one to say that? Ricardo threw the phone against the wall, smashing it to pieces. Ingrid said the same thing. Katerina too. Do you know where they are now? Laura didn't want to know. God, she didn't want to know. Locked in the bedroom, Ricardo ordered Carlos, who had appeared at the door like a ghost. No food until she learns to cooperate. As Carlos dragged her down the hall, Laura saw Sofia, the cook, watching from afar. For a brief moment their eyes met and Laura saw something there. Pity, maybe even guilt. But Sofia looked away and went back to the kitchen. Locked in her room, Laura finally allowed total panic to consume her. She pounded the door, screamed for help until she was hoarse, tried to open the window but it was sealed. No one came, no one answered. When darkness fell, Laura sat in the corner of the room, hugging her knees, shivering despite the heat. She thought of Petra, of her mother in Germany, of her comfortable and secure life that she had abandoned for a man she had known for only a few months. All the stories of missing women she had read, all the true crime documentaries she had watched. She had always thought, how could they have been so naive? Now she understood. Isolation didn't happen all at once. It was gradual, calculated, disguised as love. And now, locked in a room in a foreign country, her passport stolen and her phone destroyed, Laura Schneider finally understood the full extent of her mistake. The question now was there still any chance of survival? 2 days had passed, or was it 3? Laura had lost track of time in the darkness of the room, where the curtains remained closed, and no one responded to her cries. Food arrived once a day, always brought by Carlos, who pushed a tray through the half-open door without saying a word, watching her with dead eyes as he locked it again. Laura rationed the water from the bathroom tap, and tried to stay sane by doing mental exercises, reciting German poems she had learned at school, solving math problems, planning her escape. But every plan ran up against the same brutal reality. Locked door, sealed window, no means of communication. On the third night, or was it the fourth, something changed. Laura was half asleep when she heard the unmistakable sound of a key turning in the lock. She curled up in the corner of the bed, expecting to see Carlos or Ricardo. Instead, Sofia rushed in, closing the door quietly behind her. Quick, she whispered in Spanish with a thick accent. Tenemos poco tiempo. You went out with Miguel to the city? Carlos is drunk in the office. Laura got up unsteadily, her legs weak from days without proper movement. Are you helping me? I'm not a bad person, Sofia said, and Laura saw tears in the older woman's eyes. I work here because I need the money because I have 3 children to feed. But what he does, it's not right. The other women, Laura said urgently, grabbing Sofia's arms. Ingrid, Katerina, what happened to them? Sofia looked away. Ingrid, she paid. She sold the house in Switzerland, transferred everything to him. After the money arrived, he let her go. But she was destroyed, addicted to the drugs he gave her to keep her calm. And Katerina? Sofia's silence was answer enough. Laura felt nauseous. She resisted too much, Sofia finally said, her voice almost inaudible. She tried to escape, fought with Ricardo. He lost his temper. Miguel got rid of the body. They never found it. Laura covered her mouth to stifle a sob of terror. This was real. Terrible. And completely real. You have to do what he wants, Sofia insisted, holding Laura's face urgently. Transfer the money. Sign the papers. Be submissive. It's the only way to get out alive. He's been doing this for years. European women, always vulnerable, always with some money. He promises marriage, love, a new life. Then he isolates them, threatens them, extorts them. I don't have that much money, Laura said desperately. I have savings, maybe 40,000 euros, but it's not. It's enough. He'll accept it. But you need to appear cooperative now. Tomorrow when he comes back, you need to cry, apologize, promise to do what he wants. What about the police? My friend in Germany called them. Sofia made a sound of contempt. Do you think you're the first? Families always call, but Ricardo has connections. The local police chief receives monthly payments from him. The documents are all in order. You entered the country voluntarily. You're staying here as his fiancée. There's no official crime until you're dead or officially missing. So there's no way out, Laura whispered, reality crushing any hope. There is a way. Sofia took something out of her pocket. An old cell phone. It's my personal phone. Hide it well. There's a number here. She showed her a contact saved as Dr. Diego Rodriguez, former police officer, now working as a private investigator. He's reliable. He's not on Ricardo's payroll. If you can call him, he can help. But only when you're ready to act. Laura took the phone with trembling hands. Why are you doing this? If Ricardo finds out, Sophia paused. My daughter, she said simply. She's your age. If she were here. Her words hung in the air, laden with maternal emotion. You remind me of her. Footsteps in the hallway made them both freeze. Sophia snatched the phone back from Laura's hands and shoved it under the mattress. Remember, cooperate, cry, promise everything. It's your only chance. She left quickly, locking the door again. Laura heard voices in the hallway, Sophia explaining something about checking if the guest needed medication, Carlos's hoarse voice responding with disinterest. Laura waited until silence returned, then carefully retrieved the phone from under the mattress. It was only 20% charged. The signal was weak, 1 bar, sometimes none, but it was a line to the outside world. A chance. She looked at the saved contact, Dr. Diego Rodriguez. Her fingers hovered over the call button, but she hesitated. Sophia said to wait until she was ready to act. What did that mean? When would be the right moment? Laura turned off the phone to conserve battery and hid it inside her pillowcase. Then, for the first time in days, she allowed herself to feel something other than despair. Hope. It was a fragile, dangerous hope that could easily be crushed. But it was something, and sometimes something was all a person needed to survive another day. Ricardo returned the next morning. Laura heard him talking to Carlos in the hallway before the door opened. She prepared herself mentally, remembering Sophia's words. Cooperate, cry, promise everything. When he entered, Laura was sitting on the bed, her eyes red. She had rubbed them on purpose to make it look like she had been crying, her posture submissive. It was an act, but her life depended on it. Laura, Ricardo said, his voice carefully neutral. We need to talk like adults. I'm sorry, she said immediately, making her voice tremble. I was scared, confused. I shouldn't have doubted you. It was Petra. She's always been overprotective. She put ideas in my head. Ricardo studied her for a long moment. Laura could see the calculation going on behind his eyes. He was deciding whether to believe her or not. You hurt me, he said finally, sitting on the edge of the bed. I came here with pure intentions. I offered you my life, my heart, my business, and you betrayed me by trying to involve the police. I know it was a terrible mistake. Laura forced out tears. It wasn't difficult considering the real terror she felt. I'm so afraid of being hurt again. After Stefan, my ex-husband, it's hard to trust. The mention of past vulnerability was calculated. Predators like Ricardo sought this emotional weakness they could exploit. I understand, Ricardo said, and for a second his face softened with something that almost seemed genuine. Almost. But if we're going to build a life together, there has to be trust. Total trust. I know, and I want that. Laura swallowed, bracing herself for the next part. What do you need from me to prove I'm committed? There it was, the opening he'd been waiting for. Ricardo leaned forward, taking her hand. I'm having temporary financial problems, he said, and Laura almost laughed at the audacity of the lie. An investor bailed on me at the last minute. I need capital to keep the resort running until the high season. If you could lend me maybe 50,000 euros. He knows exactly how much I have, Laura realized with cold horror. He investigated my finances before he even met me. I have savings, she said slowly. About 40,000 euros. I was saving to buy an apartment, but, she squeezed his hand, if it's for our future together, for our business. Ricardo's smile was genuine this time, but it was the smile of a predator about to pounce on its prey. You're incredible, he said, kissing her forehead. I'll give you your phone back, access to the office computer. You can make the transfer tomorrow. After that, we'll forget all about this. We'll start over the right way. That night, Laura had dinner with Ricardo for the first time in days. He was charming again, telling stories, making plans for, after everything is settled. Laura laughed at the right moments, agreed, touched his arm with feigned affection. It was nauseating but necessary. When she finally returned to the room, it was past 11 p.m. Ricardo kissed her at the door, a possessive, domineering kiss that made Laura's skin crawl with revulsion, but she forced herself to kiss him back. Tomorrow we start again, he said. Tomorrow, she agreed. Alone in her room, Laura waited an entire hour, listening to the sounds of the resort calm down. Then carefully she retrieved Sophia's phone from the pillowcase. 15% battery remaining, 1 signal bar. With trembling hands she clicked on the contact DR, and typed a message. My name is Laura Schneider, German. I'm trapped in a resort near Cancun. A man named Ricardo Torres is extorting money from me. He has already killed at least one woman. I need urgent help. He wants me to transfer $40,000 tomorrow. I don't know if he will let me go after that. She added the location she had managed to identify from an old map she had found in a drawer days ago and pressed send. The minutes dragged on. The message showed delivered but not read. Laura stared obsessively at the screen. 10% battery, 9%. Finally, 3 dots appeared indicating that someone was typing. Laura, I'm Diego Rodriguez. I know this place and this man. You are in extreme danger. Do not transfer the money. He won't let you go anyway. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. when he is in the office making calls, his routine. Be ready at the back window of your room. The team will be there. Don't bring anything. Just run when we call. Delete this conversation now. Laura read the message 3 times, memorizing every word before deleting it along with the one she had sent. She turned off her phone and hit it again. 2:00 p.m. less than 15 hours. She lay on the bed, eyes open in the dark, and began to count the minutes until her release in her head or until her death. At this point she no longer knew which fate was more likely. Laura barely slept. At 1:30 p.m. she was positioned near the back window, hidden by the curtain, her heart pounding wildly. She could hear Ricardo's voice in the office below, a phone call in rapid Spanish that she couldn't fully understand. 1:45 p.m. She discreetly checked the window, still sealed, but the hinges looked old and rusty. 1:52 p.m. A movement in the vegetation behind the resort. Laura almost screamed with relief when she saw 2 figures dressed in dark clothes, moving silently. 1:55 p.m. One of the men signaled to the window. Laura waved back, desperate. Then everything happened at once. The man, Diego, she assumed, used a tool to pry the window open from the outside. The old metal gave way with a loud creak. Too loud. What the hell is that? Ricardo's voice exploded from downstairs. Now, Diego shouted. Jump? Laura didn't think. She threw herself out the window. It was only 8 feet high, but she landed badly, twisting her ankle. The pain shot through her, but strong hands grabbed her. Run! Diego shouted, half carrying, half dragging her into the vegetation. Behind them doors slammed. Ricardo shouted orders. Laura heard gunshots, the dry, terrifying sound of firearms. She screamed but kept moving, clinging to Diego, while another man, identified as a federal police officer by his jacket, covered their rear. They reached a van hidden on the road. Diego practically threw Laura inside and the vehicle sped off before the door was even completely closed. Sophia. Laura screamed, remembering the woman who had helped her. She's inside. She left last night with her children. She's safe, Diego said, applying pressure to a cut on Laura's arm that she hadn't even noticed. She contacted us 2 weeks ago after Katerina disappeared. We were putting the case together. Laura began to shake uncontrollably. Adrenaline, shock, relief all at once. What about Ricardo? The federal officer speaking in Spanish with Diego relayed information. Diego translated, there are arrest warrants not just for you. There are 6 European women who have disappeared or been extorted in the last 3 years. 2 families have filed international complaints. Interpol is involved. Katerina, Laura whispered. Diego looked away. They found remains on the property 2 days ago. Identification is still pending, but... Laura closed her eyes.